What's good? It's your boy Fanon. So, Demetrius Andrade, former 154-pound champion, has been ordered, is the mandatory for Billy Joe Saunders for the WBO middleweight championship title. And they've been ordered to start negotiations, and they've ordered that fight. I won't go into the specifics of it because this really is a chance. I hope that Demetrius Andrade takes this. But if Demetrius Andrade does not take this bout, then there's no hope for the guy. My understanding is, and shout out to my man at Corman Radio that talked about him needing to have, a certain number of fights before he fought Billy Joe Saunders, or before he didn't want to fight on a Golden Boy card against a Golden Boy fighter. At this stage, it's Demetrius Andrade, man. He's got to get over the hump, man. He's got to bite the bullet. He's got to take this bout and then go over to the UK, where the bout more than likely is going to be, and beat Billy Joe Saunders in the UK for Billy Joe's title. Or he's got to force Billy Joe Saunders to vacate the belt and go up to 168 pounds, face DeGale, face George Groves, do something like that. And so he's not the one that looks like he's ducking that bout. If he becomes the WBO champion, he's right back there in the running, has his career right back in line, right where he wanted it to be. Billy Joe Saunders isn't an easy bout. It's not going to be easy for him to go over to the UK and beat Billy Joe Saunders over there. If he's able to strike an agreement with maybe, with Al Heyman and the PBC, get some type of promoter behind him that's willing to win that purse bid and then force Billy Joe Saunders to come to the States to do that. I believe that Billy Joe Saunders is promoted by Frank Warren. But if there's any way that he could work out something like that where he could get the bout to the United States, of course, that would be the more preferable. That would be the preferable thing. But I can't see a route that I'm aware of that would allow for him to do that. But whatever the case is, he can't miss this opportunity. I was listening to 78 Sports TV's live stream on Black Fight Fan TV's channel, and they were talking about, all the things that had happened to the reason why people in Texas and Charlos aren't really anxious to get in the ring with Demetrius Andrade. Talked about how the Jermell Charlo and Jamal Charlo were coming up, trying to build their name, fighting in front of small crowds. Jermell Charlo gets all the way up to where he gets a title shot against Demetrius Andrade, and then Demetrius Andrade, because of his relationship and the things that he went through with his promoter, I think it's All Star Boxing and Rock Nation, Demetrius Andrade pulled out of that title fight, and then that sent Jermell Charlo back into rebuilding mode. So he had to work himself into a situation where he got a title shot. He gets a title shot. Jermell Charlo gets a title shot. He now has the title, so he's not in a big hurry to fight Demetrius Andrade. And so Demetrius Andrade is saying that people are ducking him, saying all the things that I'm sure Demetrius Andrade believes. And obviously a lot of fans of Demetrius Andrade also believe. But in this particular case, if the WBO is going to give you a title shot, then you're getting what you're asking for. If you want to be able to, if you're trying to be a middleweight champion, that's your opportunity right now. And if he passes it up, saying that he needs another 2-3 bouts before he's ready to do that, then there's no more time for him. Right? Now, maybe, I'm sure he'll argue, well, I'm not sure will argue, but perhaps he'll argue that, they're rushing him, that he's not ready for that, that he needs the tune-ups, that he's going to be having to go, he's going to lay out, if he lays out all of those things which are reasonable complaints, or not necessarily complaints, but which are legitimate disadvantages that he faces in that bout, I wouldn't argue with any of the things. It's not necessary to disagree with him, and that any of the things that he says are disadvantages. But the fight is available, and you've got to take it when you can take it. And if you don't take it, then that just going to feed even more into the people that say that Demetrius Andrade isn't real. Demetrius Andrade can have all the talent in the world, all the ability in the world. You could even overlook, even if you wanted to overlook what happened with Jermell Charlo and say, that was years ago. He's past that. Jermell Charlo now has his belt. We know that Demetrius Andrade is a legitimate boxer. He's ranked, he's ranked by the different sanctioning bodies. We know that he's a legitimate challenge to any boxer that he gets in the ring with. You can say all of that and believe all of that is true. But if he passes up on an opportunity to fight for the belt when it's mandated by the WBO, there's no time for him anymore. There really and truly there's no defense for it. There's no reasonable defense for it. Now, I've said this on other videos, but I'll be clarified again on this. If you're judging whether the cat is really not trying to be it or not, yeah, there's some reasons that you could give that could justify him not taking this fight with Billy Joe Saunders, right? There are reasons that you could point out, but are those reasonable? Are the reasons that he have, are they valid? And do they overcome, or do they overcome the reasons that the competing reasons or competing justifications that people would have for saying that this guy's not serious about being a champion, and that he is he's a prima donna without a crown? If you're going to be a prima donna, at least wait till you get a crown, a little tiara to put on your head before you start acting like that. Because, at this point in time, man, Demetrius Andrade is well on his way to being boxing's version of Earl Manigault. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but there is a New York basketball legend, right, Earl Manigault, who Kareem Abdul-Jabbar said was the best player that he had seen. And it's because he had this incredible athletic ability, could take a dollar off the top of the backboard, but he just made a series of mistakes that never really allowed him to reach his full potential. Whether for Earl Manigault that is learning how to play team basketball, or the fact that he was coming up in a time when heroin addiction was growing and kind of fell into that, or he didn't have a mother, whatever. I think he did have a mother who was around him, or he didn't have a father, whatever fell the victim of street life, whatever that was, whatever those justifications for, with Earl Manigault still winds up being that he might be the greatest player that never was, right? That he had more talent than everybody in the NBA, but he never saw more than 2 tryout practices with the Kansas City Royals or somebody, whoever it was he tried out for, right? And his legend will forever stay on the parks of on Rucker Park, in the minds of the observers that witnessed him playing basketball on Rucker Park. If Demetrius Andrade doesn't hurry up and step up and take the next opportunity that he has, he's just going to number one, he's going to validate people's reasons for not wanting to give him a shot at all. Because it's like, God, dog, how many times is this guy going to be offered something and he turns it down? Right? Because he's waiting for the perfect moment. He's working for everything, as much as possible to be in his, to be to his liking before he's willing to step up. The cat's 30 years old. Now, I've heard that he said that he wasn't ready for Billy Joe Saunders, and I wouldn't know in the WBO. I wouldn't doubt at all that would have had something that could be the reason that the WBO mandated the fight. I don't know, man. Between the WBO and the WBA, man, that's like 1 and 1A crooked organizations right there, man. The WBA is just on another planet with the nonsense that they pull. But the WBO, subscriber on the live chat said, whatever Bob orders, the WBO stands for whatever Bob orders, or whatever the promoter is that's paying the most fees, to them for that weight class. That might be the reason why they would order that, but there's no excuse you got to overcome, man. Errol Spence Jr. had to go over to the UK to beat Kell Brook to get his shot. Keith, the champion for the WBC, Keith Thurman, or the WBA, and Keith Thurman wasn't giving him a shot. I can't remember who the guy for the WBC at the time was. I don't believe that was Danny Garcia, but whoever it was holding the WBC at the time that that Errol Spence Jr. had to go to the IBF. It was clear that those guys weren't going to face him. So he had to go overseas, face Kell Brook, beat Kell Brook in his own backyard. Wasn't no way he was going to get it. It was highly unlikely that he was going to get a decision out there. And he took care of his business, and now, boom, he has a bunch of new haters accusing him of a bunch of other stuff, but at least the cats that are hating on him, have to hate on him with a belt. You know what I mean? They got to hate on him with his $1 million paydays. And if what Black Fight Fan TV said on 78 Sports TV's live stream on his channel, that's kind of confusing, but on the live stream that was on Black Fight Fan TV's channel, that Errol Spence Jr. was on the undercard for the Charlos in those 4,000 seat fights that they were having in Texas. Look how far Errol Spence Jr. has come along by accepting the challenges that were put in front of him. Where Demetrius Andrade trying to skip to Malou to the top of the charts. Look where it's gotten him. A guy that's supremely talented, a guy that has all the ability to beat all the top fighters, and I have no doubt in that. But in order for him to do that, he's got to take this bout, man. He's got to take Billy Joe. He's got to face Billy Joe Saunders. And but here's the thing: if he pushes to fight Billy Joe Saunders, I have a belief. I suspect that Billy Joe Saunders will vacate that belt and go to 168 pounds anyway. Seriously, I believe if Demetrius Andrade pushes the negotiation and goes to purse bid, lets it go to purse bid, or finds a promoter to try to negotiate that fight, I think Billy Joe Saunders is going to go to 168 pounds anyway. I think because James DeGale vacated his IBF fight and said he's looking for top quality fights, big dollar fights. You got George Groves at 168. You got Callum Smith at 168. You've got a bunch of fights over there that Billy Joe Saunders can get. So I don't think that Billy Joe Saunders is going to be in any rush to fight Demetrius Andrade. And if Demetrius Andrade takes that fight, he might be able to force his hand. But if he just outright doesn't do it, then Billy Joe Saunders will be able to do what Billy Joe Saunders wants to do, right? See if there's an easier mandatory fight that's put on him, or he just gets to go to. Anyway, just force him to go to 168. And if he takes the fight, then fight him. Because it's not like Demetrius. I think Demetrius Andrade as a southpaw against Billy Joe Saunders will do well. Demetrius Andrade is he's a good boxer. He's got fast hands. I think he's a little taller than Billy Joe Saunders. Billy Joe Saunders' footwork. Demetrius Andrade is not David Lemieux. He is not just some straight up and down cat that can't move. So anyway, we'll see what it is. We'll see. And I think he's better than anybody. Demetrius Andrade is better than anybody that George Grove has beaten today, including Chris Eubanks. So anyway, we hope to see the fight. I hope Demetrius Andrade makes the right decision. And with that, I'm out. Peace.